High above Seoul, where the city dissolved into a sea of jeweled lights and moving constellations of traffic, the 88th floor of the K Royal Hotel stood like an untouchable citadel. Walls of gold-veined marble and towering glass panels reflected wealth back onto itself, multiplying chandeliers until the ceiling looked like it held a second, brighter sky. Tonight was not merely a party. It was a coronation. The air was thick with the sharp sweetness of vintage champagne, expensive perfume, and the metallic tang of ambition. Every laugh was measured, every smile calculated, because tonight marked the rise of the new chairman of the K Group, a man whose name alone could tilt markets and destroy lives. Maya Lewis moved through this world like a ghost that did not belong. She adjusted the thin face mask covering her nose and mouth, tugging it higher as if fabric alone could erase her existence. The oversized gray cleaner's uniform hung off her shoulders, swallowing the curves of a body that once wore pressed blazers and academic cardigans. The sleeves slid down her wrists, barely hiding hands that were raw and chapped, their skin cracked from years of harsh chemicals. These were not the hands of the woman she used to be, the woman who once turned textbook pages with care and dreamed of a future built on knowledge and stability. The floor manager's impatience cut through the hum of polite conversation and clinking glasses. His voice was sharp and merciless, honed by years of enforcing the will of people richer than him. He did not see Maya as a person, only as a potential problem waiting to happen.
Hurry up, clean the VIP lounge. Chairman Kwon is arriving in 5 minutes. If I see a single speck of dust, you're fired.
Maya nodded immediately, her body responding before her mind could. She pushed the heavy cleaning cart forward, its wheels squeaking softly against the polished marble as she entered the VIP lounge. The space was cavernous and immaculate, all leather seating and low, golden light. The moment she crossed the threshold, her chest tightened. She hated this floor, not because of its luxury, but because it smelled like him. Cedarwood and sea salt lingered in the air, wrapping around her senses like a hand closing around her throat. It was the scent of a memory she had spent 5 years trying and failing to bury. She worked fast and methodical, collecting abandoned crystal glasses before anyone could notice her presence. Each clink echoed too loudly in her ears, syncing with the frantic pounding of her heart. She told herself to breathe and to focus, just finish and get out. That was all she needed. This paycheck mattered. Noah's asthma medication cost more every month, and Isla's kindergarten shoes were already worn thin at the soles. Survival left no room for pride, only urgency. Then the double doors swung open without warning. The muted music from the party beyond seemed to fall away, replaced by the slow, deliberate sound of leather shoes striking marble. Each step was heavy and authoritative, carrying the weight of someone accustomed to obedience. Maya knew that sound. Her body recognized it before her mind did, and fear rooted her to the spot. She froze, fingers locking around the handle of her cart as if it were the only solid thing left in the room. Her head bowed so low, her chin nearly touched her chest, posture collapsing inward in a silent plea. She begged internally for him not to look at her and to simply walk past.
Get out.
The voice cut through the air like a blade, cold and controlled, stripped of warmth. It was a baritone forged in command and distance. There was no mistaking it. It was his voice, Kwon Ji-yong, the man she had loved and the man she had fled. Maya jolted into motion, fumbling as she tried to turn the cart around. Her hands trembled so badly, the wheels scraped crookedly against the floor. Panic flooded her veins.
I said get out.
Then he stopped. The abrupt pause swallowed the room whole. Silence settled, dense and suffocating, pressing down until it felt capable of crushing bone.
You wait.
Maya obeyed without thinking. She did not breathe or move. She felt him approach and sensed the shift in the air as his presence closed in. Heat radiated from his body, overwhelming and familiar. A large hand clamped down on her shoulder, and with a sharp twist, he spun her around.
Look at me.
She could not. Her gaze remained fixed on the floor, lashes trembling. His hand reached up, fingers curling into the edge of her mask, and he ripped it away in one swift motion. Time fractured. The world narrowed to the space between them. Ji-yong stared at her, as if reality itself had betrayed him. His eyes widened in raw disbelief, and the glass of whiskey in his other hand shook uncontrollably, ice clinking against crystal like a nervous heartbeat.
Maya?
He whispered her name as if it were both a curse and a confession. Maya recoiled instinctively, trying to pull free. "Sir, please. I'm just the cleaning staff." The word struck him harder than any slap.
Sir? 5 years ago, you threw divorce papers in my face, emptied my accounts and vanished into thin air. And now you call me sir?
"You have the wrong person."
Wrong person?
He seized her left hand and lifted it toward the light. The faint tan line on her ring finger told the truth. Words tried to bury a pale ghost of a promise once worn.
Look me in the eye and tell me I'm wrong.
Maya finally looked up. 5 years of struggle were etched into her face, carving lines of exhaustion and resilience. But her eyes, deep and defiant, were unchanged. "Yes, Chairman Kwon, the Maya you knew is dead."
Dead.
He drove her back until her spine hit the wall, his body boxing her in, power radiating from every inch of him.
Then tell me, why is a dead woman scrubbing toilets in my hotel?
To survive.
Survive?
He reached into his jacket, pulled out a black credit card, and flung it at her. It struck her chest and fell to the floor with a hollow clatter.
Is this what you wanted? Money? I have billions. If you left me for money, why didn't you take half my fortune? Why are you here looking like this?
Maya closed her eyes. He did not know about the threats, about his mother, or about the choice that had destroyed her. "Let me go."
Never. You ran once. I won't let you run again. I will lock down this entire hotel if I have to.
The shrill ring of a phone shattered the moment. The sound came from the cleaning cart. A cheap, cracked smartphone lit up, vibrating insistently. The caller ID read, "My Angels." Ji-yong's gaze snapped to the screen. His fury evaporated, replaced by shock so pure it hollowed him out. A little boy filled the display with dark skin, curly hair, sharp monolithed eyes, and the same frown line etched between his brows. A little girl squeezed in beside him, dimples flashing, Ji-yong's dimples.
Mommy, Isla's hungry. When are you coming home?
Maya lunged forward in panic. No, Ji-yong was faster. He took the phone, staring as the children stared back.
Who are you?
Ji-yong's hand shook violently. He lifted his gaze to Maya, whose face had gone bloodless.
Who are they?
Maya knew the truth could no longer be contained. "They are my children."
How old?
4? No. 5. He closed his eyes and inhaled deeply. When he opened them, rage and tears coexisted, equally violent.
5. We broke up exactly 5 years ago.
He stepped closer, his voice dropping into a dangerous, possessive growl that promised there was no escape.
Maya Lewis, you didn't just steal my heart. You stole my children.
1 hour had passed, yet the contrast between the worlds colliding at this address only grew more grotesque with every second. Outside the crumbling brick building, wedged between abandoned shops and flickering streetlights in one of Seoul's forgotten slums, a line of immaculate black SUVs waited like silent predators. Their engines purred softly, controlled and expensive. At the curb, a $500,000 Maybach gleamed beneath the sickly yellow street lamp, its polished surface reflecting poverty it would never touch. An alien object in a place that smelled of desperation. Inside the basement apartment, the air was thick and oppressive, heavy with mold, damp concrete, and years of trapped humidity. Every breath scraped the lungs. The walls wept with moisture, peeling wallpaper curling like dead leaves, and the floor seemed permanently cold no matter the season. This was not simply a room, it was a slow suffocation, a place where time decayed alongside hope. Ji-yong sat on a sagging second-hand sofa, whose springs protested under his weight. The fabric was threadbare and stained by years of use, bowing beneath a man accustomed to Italian leather and private jets. In his perfectly tailored suit, he looked obscene here, like royalty thrown into a landfill. Every precise line of his clothing screamed wealth, power, and distance from the misery seeping into his bones. Across the room, the twins, Noah and Isla, sat on the bare floor with knees drawn close, small bodies pressed together as if proximity alone could keep the world from swallowing them. Their fingers were locked tightly, knuckles pale, a silent pact of survival. In front of them stood Maya, unmoving, shoulders squared and arms subtly outstretched. She was a lioness, cornered, exhausted but ferocious, her body a living shield between danger and her cubs. "What are you doing? If you try to take them..." Her voice was low and sharp, every syllable hissing through clenched teeth. Fear burned beneath the anger, raw and exposed, but she forced her spine straight, daring him to step closer. The room seemed to tighten around them, as though even the walls were holding their breath.
Take them? Leaving them here would be the crime.
Ji-yong's gaze drifted deliberately around the apartment, cataloging every sign of neglect and struggle. The peeling wallpaper, the single thin mattress laid directly on the floor, empty instant noodle cups on the table stacked like evidence. Each detail struck him harder than any accusation, a silent indictment of the years he had not been here. His eyes stopped on the boy, Noah, small and thin, yet standing with a defiance far too large for his body. Noah met his stare without flinching, then rose unsteadily to his feet. With a sudden burst of courage, he spread his arms wide in front of Isla, a human barricade fueled by instinct.
Bad man, go away.
The words were simple, broken, and devastating. They struck Ji-yong square in the chest, a physical blow that stole his breath. Pain bloomed beneath his ribs, sharp and undeniable. That stubborn bravery, that instinct to protect at all costs, was unmistakable, mirrored back at him by a child who did not even know his name. The door creaked open, breaking the tension like a blade. Ji-yong's lawyer stepped inside, clutching a thin document folder as though it carried the weight of a verdict. His footsteps were cautious, respectful of the fragile silence hanging over the room.
Chairman, the express test results are in.
Silence swallowed everything. Even the city outside seemed to retreat. From the kitchenette, the leaky faucet announced itself with merciless clarity, each drop echoing like a countdown and stretching the moment until it was almost unbearable.
99.999% match. They are yours, sir.
Ji-yong accepted the paper with hands that no boardroom had ever seen tremble. He stared at the words, the numbers blurring together. Children. His children. For 1,825 days, 5 long years, they had existed without him. While he drowned himself in alcohol and resentment and cursed Maya's name, they had grown up underground, sick, hungry, and invisible, learning to survive without ever knowing the face or name of their father. He rose slowly to his feet. Maya recoiled instantly, panic flashing across her face as she grabbed the twins and pulled them closer, bracing for loss. "Please, Ji-yong, I have a job. I can feed them. Do not take them." Her eyes met his, wide and desperate. 5 years ago, those eyes had been full of light, dreams, and reflected stars. Now they held only fear, etched deep by exhaustion and sacrifice. Standing in front of her was the reason, him and the empire that had crushed her life. Ji-yong did not shout or threaten. Instead, to the shock of his bodyguards watching from the doorway, The tyrant of K Group bent his knees and lowered himself onto the filthy linoleum floor. Suit and pride forgotten, as if gravity itself demanded his surrender.
I am not going to take them from you, but I will not allow my children or the mother of my children to stay in this hell for one more second.
Tears spilled freely, streaking down his face as he reached a trembling hand toward Noah. His fingers hovered inches away, afraid that even this small touch might be rejected. His voice broke, stripped of power and pretense.
I am your Appa, Dad. I am sorry I am late.
Scylla peeked out from behind her brother, curiosity overpowering fear. Her small face tilted upward, eyes wide and searching as she absorbed the strange man kneeling before them. Appa? Mommy said Appa went to the moon for work? Something inside Ji-yong shattered completely, collapsing into dust. He forced a smile through the ache and nodded gently.
Yes, I am back. I am back from the moon.
He stood and wiped his face clean. The familiar cold mask of the CEO slid back into place, forged now from resolve rather than arrogance. His eyes burned with a promise that nothing would stand in his way.
Pack your things, only what is essential. Leave the rest.
Where are we going? Her voice wavered as disbelief battled survival.
Home. We are going to Hanamdong, to the castle where you belong.
He lifted Isla gently into his arms, the lack of weight cutting deeper than any blade. She was heartbreakingly light. Maya opened her mouth to argue until Noah's coughing tore through the room, deep and relentless, shaking his frail body. The mold was killing him, and Maya's resistance collapsed. For her children, she would accept the devil's hand. Okay, we will go. The Kwon mansion in Hanamdong did not merely stand. It loomed. Built of stone, glass, and generational arrogance, it resembled a modern fortress more than a family home. High walls sealed it off from the rest of Seoul, as if the world beyond was unworthy of touching the legacy inside. Servants moved with stiff precision, their footsteps echoing across polished marble floors. The air itself seemed tense, electrified by rumor and outrage, as whispers slithered through corridors about the new chairman, the black woman at his side, and the two children who carried his blood but not the family name. The moment the news spread, chaos erupted like a silent explosion. Doors slammed and phones rang endlessly as loyal staff avoided eye contact, torn between obedience and fear. The household had been trained for crises involving markets and mergers, not for the arrival of a woman who shattered decades of carefully preserved prejudice. To them, Maya was not a person. She was a threat that could fracture the illusion of purity the Kwon family had worshipped for generations. Madame Han waited in the grand living room, seated like a queen upon an invisible throne. The vast space was adorned with priceless art and ancestral portraits that stared down with judgmental eyes. She was impeccably dressed, every line of her tailored hanbok sharp and predatory. Years of control had hardened her gaze into something venomous, capable of killing reputations with a single word. When Maya stepped inside, the room seemed to recoil. Madame Han's fingers loosened, and a porcelain teacup slipped from her grasp, shattering against the marble floor. Tea spread across the floor in a dark stain, mirroring the fury rising in her chest. The uncontrolled moment betrayed her terror and the fear of losing control. You plague? You dare to come back, and you brought these mongrels? Her voice pierced the air, shrill and cruel, vibrating with hatred that had fermented for years. The word hung heavy and poisonous, aimed at Maya and the children beside her.
Watch your watch your mouth.
Ji-yong stepped forward, and the balance of the room shifted. His tone was controlled, but years of pain and betrayal churned beneath the warning. Ji-yong, who are you talking to? Have you forgotten she left you for money? These kids are not yours. It is a trap. Her shriek echoed against the high ceiling as desperation bled through the fury. She clung to the lie that had justified every cruel action since.
The DNA report is right here, and as for 5 years ago, we are going to settle that debt today.
The folder struck the glass table with a violent crack. Evidence and proof dragged the buried past into the light. Ji-yong lifted his hand to signal the nanny. His eyes softened briefly as he looked at the children, shielding them from the ugliness.
Take the children upstairs to the playroom. Turn up the music.
The nanny ushered Noah and Isla away, and cheerful music drifted faintly down the staircase. Ji-yong waited until only truth remained. Ji-yong sat down and looked at his mother with disgust rather than love.
Mother, 5 years ago, on the day Maya left, there was a transaction of 500 million won from your private account to a private investigator in Chicago. On that same day, Maya's parents' car brakes were tampered with.
Each word landed with surgical precision. This was not an emotional accusation, but a verdict supported by facts. Maya gasped as realization crashed over her, and her knees nearly buckled. What she believed to be cruelty revealed itself as calculated murder disguised as protection. She looked at Madame Han with horror as grief and rage tangled together, threatening to tear her apart. "What are you talking about? I did it for you. She is not fit for you. She is a foreigner. She is black. She would ruin the purity of the Kwon bloodline." Her composure shattered as racism, fear, and obsession with lineage spilled into the open.
Ruin the bloodline? Look at Noah and Isla. They are smart, beautiful, and healthy. They are the future of this group. You almost destroyed this family because you almost killed the mother of my heirs.
He stood towering over her as power shifted completely. The legacy she worshipped no longer belonged to her.
Maya, tell me the truth. What did she threaten you with?
He turned to Maya, anger softening into an earnest plea for the truth he had lost for 5 years. "She showed me a document. She said, if I did not leave, you would lose your inheritance and be destitute. She said, if I did not disappear, my parents in America would not see the sunrise." The burden she carried finally cracked open, and truth began its work. Ji-yong closed his eyes as guilt crushed him. The anger he had clung to dissolved as memories rewrote themselves. He realized she had sacrificed everything to keep him safe, and the truth nearly broke him.
Did you hear that?
Ji-yong opened his eyes and looked at his mother.
Effective immediately, you are being transferred to the Jeju Island Sanatorium. You will not leave without my permission. Your accounts are frozen.
His voice was cold and absolute as years of unchecked power collapsed. "You cannot do this. I am your mother."
It is because you are my mother that I am not sending you to prison for attempted murder. Get her out of my sight.
Bodyguards dragged Madame Han away as her screams echoed through the mansion. Silence reclaimed the living room as the storm passed, leaving devastation and relief. Ji-yong pulled Maya into his arms and held her as if letting go would shatter them both.
I am sorry. I am sorry. I did not protect you. I am sorry I hated you.
"I am tired, Ji-yong. I am so tired."
I know. You do not have to carry it anymore. From now on, I carry everything.
In the heart of the fortress, something finally softened, and love was reclaimed from the ruins. The scandal did not vanish overnight, but it softened, dissolved slowly like frost under a rising sun. Headlines grew smaller, whispers lost their sharpness, and the truth, unyielding and patient, finally took its rightful place. Maya Lewis had never been a gold digger. She had been cornered, manipulated, and hurt, and now the world was forced to see her not as a caricature, but as a woman who had survived. The mansion, once a symbol of excess and judgment, grew quieter, less hostile, its marble halls no longer echoing with suspicion, but with something tentative and fragile. Understanding. Yet even as the noise outside faded, Maya felt a restlessness settle deep in her chest. Living in the mansion as a guest felt wrong, like standing on the edge of a life that was not fully hers. Every room reminded her of unfinished sentences, of years stolen, and words left unsaid. She watched her children thrive within those walls, watched Ji-yong move through the house with careful restraint, and knew that coexistence without clarity would only breed confusion, especially for two young hearts who deserved certainty, not shadows. A week later, the garden bloomed under a generous afternoon sun. The air carried the scent of cut grass and flowers, and somewhere in the distance, the city hummed faintly, as if respecting the boundary of this private moment. Noah and Isla chased a soccer ball across the lawn, their laughter bright and unfiltered, while a bodyguard stood several steps behind them, visibly uncertain whether to intervene or simply accept defeat at the hands of childhood chaos. Maya stood beside Ji-yong, her gaze fixed on the twins, her heart heavy with thoughts she could no longer keep to herself. "We aren't married." Her voice was calm, but it carried weight, the kind that came from nights spent staring at the ceiling, rehearsing courage. "I don't want the kids to think I'm just your mistress." Ji-yong did not flinch. He did not deflect or argue. Instead, he turned to her with a simplicity that stripped the moment of pretense, as if the answer had always been obvious to him, waiting only for permission to be spoken.
Then we get married.
Maya finally looked at him, the sunlight catching in her eyes, revealing the fear beneath her composure. Her return had never been about reclaiming a place at his side. It had been about protecting the fragile world her children occupied. "I didn't come back for marriage. I came back for them." Ji-yong exhaled slowly, as if he had been holding his breath for 5 long years. He nodded, acknowledging the truth of her words without resisting them. Setting his tablet aside, he closed the distance between them, each step deliberate and grounded. When he reached into his pocket, his fingers brushed against familiar velvet, worn not by time alone, but by longing. The small box emerged, unassuming yet heavy with history, and the world seemed to narrow to the space between them. It was not a new ring, glittering with novelty. It was the ring, the one she had left behind on a night soaked in pain and misunderstanding. The platinum band had lost its sharp edges, smoothed by years of constant touch. He had carried it every single day, a quiet ritual of hope and punishment, a reminder of loss pressed against his heart.
I know.
He opened the box, and memory spilled out. Dropping to one knee, he did so not in desperation or secrecy, but openly, grounded in sunlight and grass. The garden bore witness. Noah and Isla froze mid-game, the ball rolling to a stop as curiosity tugged them closer. They ran to the edge of the moment, eyes wide, breathless with anticipation.
You left this.
Ji-yong looked up at Maya, vulnerability etched plainly across his face. His voice did not waver, but it carried the weight of years spent loving in absence, of becoming a father in silence.
For 5 years, I touched this ring every time I missed you, which was every second of every day.
He gestured subtly toward the children, their small forms suddenly central to everything.
Noah needs a father to teach him soccer. Isla needs a father to spoil her. And I, Kwon Ji-yong, need Maya Lewis to be my wife, my soulmate, my only love. Maya, give me a second chance. Not for the kids, for us.
Before Maya could respond, a chorus erupted beside them. The twins, sensing victory, clasped their hands together in dramatic unison, their innocence transforming the gravity of the moment into something warm and unguarded. They chanted with absolute conviction, voices ringing across the garden, as if destiny itself had enlisted them as messengers. "Say yes, Mommy. Daddy said he'd buy us a puppy if you say yes." Laughter broke through Maya's tears, raw and unrestrained. She pressed a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed by love, by fear, by the fragile beauty of hope resurrected. "You bribed the children?" Ji-yong's grin was immediate and unguarded, the boyish joy of a man who had finally allowed himself to believe again.
To get my wife back, I would bribe God himself.
Maya extended her hand, fingers trembling slightly as if the weight of the past still clung to her skin. Ji-yong slid the ring back into place, the metal settling as though it had never belonged anywhere else. The fit was perfect, not by coincidence, but by constancy. He lifted her hand and pressed his lips against her knuckles, reverent and sure.
This time, unless I die, this ring is never coming off.
3 years had passed, and time had polished everything it touched. The grand ballroom of the K Royal Hotel glowed beneath massive crystal chandeliers, their light refracting across marble floors and silk-draped walls. This was a room designed for power, for contracts signed with steady hands, and for decisions that could bend markets and shape futures. The low murmur of executives, shareholders, and media formed a restrained hum, the sound of money and influence breathing together in one place. At the center of it all stood Ji-yong, alone at the podium, yet commanding the entire space. His posture was effortless, his tailored suit fitting him like armor refined by years of victory. Every gesture was precise, every pause deliberate. This was not the young man who once fought to survive a ruthless world. This was a leader who had mastered it. To the audience, he was the undisputed king of the corporate world, a man whose words carried weight far beyond the ballroom walls. As he reached the closing lines of his keynote speech, the air subtly shifted. The formal tension that had held the room in careful balance loosened, as if the building itself sensed what was coming. The doors at the side of the stage swung open, not with ceremony, but with the uncontainable energy of childhood. 2 8-year-olds burst into view, their footsteps light and unrestrained against the polished floor. Noah wore a miniature tuxedo, his tie slightly crooked, his expression a mix of determination and barely contained excitement. Beside him was Isla, floating forward in a fluffy pink dress that bounced with every step, ribbons catching the light as if she carried her own spotlight with her. "Daddy," Mommy said, "if you do not finish now, we are going to fail being late for Disney World." Her voice burst through the microphone and echoed across the hall with innocent authority. For a heartbeat, the room froze. Then it shattered into laughter. Executives covered their mouths, shareholders leaned back in their chairs, and even the most stone-faced board members surrendered to the moment. The sound rolled through the ballroom like a warm wave, dissolving hierarchy and formality in its wake. Ji-yong let out a long sigh that carried no stress, only surrender. A helpless smile curved across his face, softening his sharp features. It was the smile of a man who had already won everything that truly mattered. That single expression, unguarded and genuine, melted hearts far more effectively than any profit report ever could.
Well, the real boss has spoken. Meeting adjourned.
He lifted Isla into his arms, her laughter close to his ear, and reached down to take Noah's hand, grounding himself in the simple, solid warmth of his son's grip. The gesture spoke louder than any speech. This was where his true authority lived. Applause followed them, not the polite kind reserved for CEOs, but something warmer and closer to affection. In the front row, Maya watched it all with a slow shake of her head and a knowing smile. She wore an emerald gown that caught the light with every movement, regal without being ostentatious. She looked every bit the queen of the K Group, not by title alone, but by presence. She was more than a wife standing in support. She was the head of the foundation, a respected force in Seoul, and a woman who had carved her own legacy alongside his. Ji-yong descended the stairs without hesitation, bypassing VIPs, executives, and flashing cameras. The world could wait. His focus was fixed on her. Each step closed the distance between power and home, between the public man and the private promise he had kept for years. In front of the cameras, and in front of the world that had once tried to break them, He leaned down and kissed her. It was not dramatic or staged, just certain. A quiet declaration that needed no explanation.
Let us go home, Mrs. Kwon.
Let us go home, Mr. Kwon. In a city built on prejudice and steel, where ambition often devoured tenderness, they had built something stronger than reputation or empire. They had built a family forged through struggle, loyalty, and love. As they walked away together, surrounded by laughter and light, it was clear that no force in that city or any other would ever tear them apart again.